Welcome back to For Me, the podcast, where we embrace chaos, we find the clarity, and get real about transformation, just one conversation at a time. You guys, it is a big episode today. We've got our first ever guest. Then we're going to take a deep dive into polarity in relationships and identity, and I've got an exciting update on something that I have been building behind the scenes that I can't wait to share with you. So here's what's coming up on For Me. First, we're talking tattoos and transformation. I sat down with Gable Rynning, the artist behind 3 of my tattoos. Each one of my tattoos marked a completely different era of my life, and I wanted to talk to him about that. I'm flipping the script today because I wanted to know, what is his For Me moment? Do tattoos actually hold energy, or is that something that I just tell myself? Then we're going to dive into something bigger than a Hollywood lawsuit. We're talking polarity, masculine and feminine energy, attraction, identity. Why some relationships just seem to work and while others feel like they're missing something, and why so many people misunderstand what polarity actually is. And finally, I am going to take you guys behind the scenes of the Alchemist Blueprint. This isn't just another self-help program, you guys. It is something that I felt like I had to create. And today, I'm going to give you a sneak peek into the process that rewires your beliefs so that you can actually shift your reality. So buckle up, because this is going to be a good one. Let's get into it. Okay, tattoos have always been more than just ink for me. They've marked major chapters of my life, moments of power, of love, of transformation. And one person has been there for all of it, Gable Rynning. Gable is a talented tattoo artist, but beyond that, he is somebody who has literally etched my evolution into my skin. From my first tattoo in 2019, when I was full on Viking warrior energy, to my Taylor Swift-inspired tattoo in 2022 when I was deep in love, to now stepping fully into Omega energy with my latest piece. So today, I wanted to sit down with him, not just to talk about the art itself, but the meaning behind it. Does he think tattoos hold energy? Does he notice a shift in people he tattoos over time? And what is his For Me moment? You know, the realization that shaped who he is today. Here's my conversation with Gable Rynning. First things first, how do you feel being my first guest?
I'm pretty stoked. I was actually just thinking how it would be cool to be on a podcast. Maybe somebody will listen to what I have to say
I think so.
and be interested.
I think so.
So I'm excited.
Well, thank you for being my first guest.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked.
I want to know why you are tattooing to begin with. Like, how did you even get started with that?
So the first time I was ever in a tattoo shop, it was in Miami. It was with my dad, brother, sister. We were down in Miami. We were in really rough neighborhood. My dad was just a cool guy, and we were always just out in interesting places, just doing cool stuff. And we ended up going into this one shop because he was interested in getting a tattoo.
How old were you then?
I was 13.
13. Okay. So you were like a baby.
I was 13.
Were you like a giant yet?
I was a giant. Yeah. I was probably this tall. I've been this tall forever. Yeah. I was a giant. So you go into this place and I mean, there's like grates over the windows and, just the most gangster kind of sort of like stuff like this doesn't really, I guess it kind of exists in some places, but this was before, safe space and tattoo were ever in the same sentence.
This was before it was like, I'm going to do a self-expression.
This was where if you wanted a fine line tattoo, like they would have just been like, yeah, no, you're going to get a skull or an eagle or, something big and tough. Like it was a different era.
So this is like masculinity.
Kind of, yeah, it was the tough guy. It was the tough guy era, It wasn't, there wasn't nothing like, it was just a different world.
So what was it about that experience that you were like,
this guy who was, pretty sure his name was Chino, covered in tattoos, lovely guy. I can't even tell you how cool he was and friendly. Just chatting it up with my dad the whole time. And my dad ended up getting like a Viking ship with some black kind of tribal designs around it. He put a stencil on him and then also drew onto my dad. I just thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever experienced in my life.
Had you been an artist like growing up?
Yeah, it was always doing traditional art, like drawing and some painting, but mainly pencil drawings and stuff. Now I do mostly digital stuff. Yeah.
So you've been kind of an artist already, and then this ended up being your preferred medium to be an artist.
Yeah, I guess it's my favorite medium.
That's cool. Do you do art?
I do. I like to do watercolors when I can. Asian influence, Japanese influence, particularly.
That's really cool.
When my dad was getting tattooed by this guy, I was just looking around the shop. Like they were in one room and the door was locked because I think, it was that kind of place. So
Wait, what do you mean that kind of place?
When I tell you this was not
Like, where would you go?
No, I mean, there was like a lobby area and then there was like a tattoo room, but it wasn't
Right.
like anybody could come in and out. Nobody could walk in and out.
Wow, okay.
So my dad was getting tattooed and I was just rummaging through like flash sheets and looking at all these, just the coolest art I'd ever seen at the time,
What's the flash sheet?
Okay, so when you walk into a tattoo shop, at least a cool tattoo shop, they usually have sheets of designs on the walls.
Like at Babylon, when you
Like
walk
at Babylon,
in?
yeah. What it is an ode to up to like 100 years ago or more, when that's all that you got. You just went into a tattoo shop, you picked something off the wall, and it was tailored toward sailors.
So you couldn't really request your own design? Or
I don't think tattooers really started doing their own really custom tattoo designs until maybe like 60s, 70s.
I had no
80s.
idea. You're just probably educating all of our
Probably, yeah. I love that. So, it's
Yeah.
just a thing that you don't see in so many tattoo shops now. You go into a lot of tattoo shops and they're kind of sterile. They're kind of like look like a medical facility almost. There's not much art on the walls.
And like character and personality.
Yeah, like, you come into Babylon, another shop that's been around for a while, and you can kind of smell the history. You can look at these old sheets of flash that was, at one time, that was like all you could get.
How long has Babylon been there for?
Been there for 25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
So the way that Gable and I actually met was Rockspire, my gym that you guys know I recently closed, literally right next to the tattoo shop, to Babylon Tattoo.
Right.
So it was just kind of fate. I remember walking in there the first time because I was interested in getting this tattoo, which I'll talk a little bit about. And yeah, I think that's how we met, right? Like,
I think so, yeah.
Walked in the tattoo shop,
Yeah.
we were there.
So my dad walked into the tattoo shop, just to make sure there wasn't anything really insane going on.
Yeah, to scare you.
So he,
or like
just to scope the place out. So then, so he comes out and then he's like, all right, don't look at anything. Okay. And so sure enough, I walk in and there's just
like boobs everywhere.
Clown women and chola girls and just everything
And
everything a dude would want to, look at.
And heterosexual.
Yeah. And I was just floored. That was where it all began.
So then 13, you're how old now?
I'm 32.
So flash forward 20 years in the career that you're in now as a tattoo artist. What is the thing that you find is the most rewarding part of the experience?
The most rewarding or satisfying thing, it could be just as much as doing a big tattoo and finishing that, is even doing something that takes 5 minutes and that somebody really loves. Just doing that is rewarding.
So the big stuff and the little stuff.
Just making people happy. That's what I think it's all really about. Is making people happy. Whether it's something really custom that I spend a lot of time figuring out, or something really simple, just making somebody happy, making somebody feel better in their skin is what it's all about.
You ever tattooed yourself?
Of course.
Where?
Basically every tattooer has some point.
Do you know how many tattoos you currently have?
30. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
One for each year of birth, I guess.
It's somewhere around 30 last time I checked.
Gable's got 1 million tattoos on him, as we just said. I've got like 7 or 8, and Gable's done 3 of them. I have these runes. So he ended up tattooing, basically it's like a sentence or 2 that basically translates to, I am in charge of everything in my life. And I was at that point in time, I had just met the first life coach that I ever worked with. And this was something I discovered in that experience. And the runes, where I really was into Norse mythology, and I was really into like my masculine energy. And that's really like what I was projecting at that time. I think I was like more of a bro at that point. So that was the first tattoo with Gable. The second tattoo, he did a Taylor Swift lyric on my forearm, which is when I had fallen in love with and it was love is a ruthless game unless you play it good and right. And it's just in this nice font. And then last week, my third tattoo is on my wrist, and it is the symbol of Omega, which is really interesting because this first tattoo was all about creating and going after what I wanted in my life. Fast forward to the Omega tattoo, which is really about receptivity and letting it come to me and being confident in my energy. I really love this journey that I've been on with you. You've kind of been there for these moments where these big transitions are happening in my life.
That's another special thing about it too. The magic of it. I see people when good things happen, and then when a lot of shitty things, somebody dies, grandma, mom, dad, friend. Okay, so I definitely tattooed a lot of people at their best and at their worst. It gets pretty heavy sometimes,
I
but
think
I think
it's kind
it's,
of like a religious experience in a weird way.
yeah, but I mean, it's the magic of it. I mean, one really shook me the most was I tattooed a portrait of this man's wife who had died of cancer. This dude was just so fucking sad
Oh my God.
about it. I tattooed a picture of his wife. He was so stoked to have it. The picture of her, she's got her mouth open, and they're clearly at some kind of like party or something. She's got a big smile on her face, and I love tattooing it.
So you're basically helping people process their grief. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like therapy.
yeah, it really is. And at one point, I had a good friend of mine used to talk about art therapy, and at the time, I was really young, and I just didn't get it. I just
Yeah.
kind of reduced it to just some hippie bullshit,
Yeah.
But after tattooing for the amount of years that I've tattooed, I've come to realize that it really is therapeutic when you put a man's deceased wife on him, or even, it doesn't even have to be anything as detailed or as serious as that. I mean, even something that's really small that takes 10 minutes.
I mean, so like this tattoo that he just did for me took 10 minutes. I look back at the time that I got my first tattoo,
Mhm.
and I almost was like wearing my masculinity as a cover or a mask to make me feel safe and
Mhm.
strong. And this whole journey of my life in the past decade or so has really been about coming into my own as a person
Mhm.
and owning the duality that exists within all of us, because we all have masculine and feminine. It's like you putting this tattoo on me with my acknowledgement of that divine feminine energy, feeling very connected to. Funny because like you don't know that. I'm not
Right,
going in
yeah.
there being like, hey, this is like my spiritual awakening.
There's definitely those people, and
Oh, that do tell you everything?
of course,
Yeah.
we get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
People super fucking vocal.
And how cool that it's
Oh, they
like
are.
literally a part of that. Like
Yeah,
you're
right,
like you're
yeah.
like a priest or
Yeah,
something.
and the tattooers that don't want to listen to that, like fuck off. Like you're changing the way somebody looks permanently. So I mean, you should at least fucking listen to somebody and hear what they got to say.
So my podcast is called For Me, a Podcast. And the reason why is because when we're sharing opinions with each other, I will often say, for me, and share my opinion for me. Exactly.
Uh,
So I want to know for you,
mhm.
what is your for me moment? And that is a moment of realization or shift that changed something big within you. Maybe it was when you were tattooing somebody. Maybe it was something separate than that.
Oh my God, what a question.
Yeah.
But, well, kind of like what I said earlier with the art therapy thing that friend Nadine was talking about a long time ago, that when I realized that I do offer some kind of therapy for people, then that was kind of a big moment because everything about the world we live in tells us we don't look good or overweight and stuff like that. And then so I realized I've been tattooing for at least like 13 years now. So only within the past couple of years did I realize that, I help people feel better in their own skin. So I think that was like a solid moment because at one point I felt like I didn't really help people because I do get a lot out of helping people, and then for a while I kind of felt like I'm not really doing much with tattooing until I had that moment where I realized that I do help people feel better about the skin.
Dude, that's literally it. You
Yeah.
have made me feel like all the different sides of myself can connect into this one thing that makes it. And
Yeah.
that's what's exciting about having all the different pieces of art on me is that I can point to that different spot in my life. So yeah, you really are sort of shepherding people through these big experiences.
We call it just the magic.
It is the
of
magic.
Something special.
So if someone came to you tomorrow and said, I need a tattoo that represents who I really am, Where would you start?
Here's what I think of when I hear that. So at one point in Japan, where they have a crazy tattoo culture, like a really goes back to like at least the 1500s, the Edo period Japan, maybe even a little earlier than that. So like if you wanted a tattoo, you would talk to a tattoo artist, and then he would decide whether you were worthy enough of a dragon or a phoenix or whatever. Or I think he actually decided for you. I mean, I'm talking about a very strict, like a very like
Yeah.
limited situation.
Well,
That
that's,
exists
I
like
mean,
a long time ago. Nowadays, you just walk into a shopping tattoo. In an ancient setting, the tattoo artist decided
it's almost
what
like
you
the
wore.
sorting hat in Harry Potter telling you which house you belong to.
Yeah,
You can't
I guess
choose
so,
the
yeah.
house.
Yeah, I
You're
guess
told
so.
the
Yeah, I
house.
guess so. Don't take me for not knowing much about Harry
It's
Potter.
totally okay.
But I can picture the cat talking. I can
Yeah,
picture the
exactly.
cat.
The kid goes and sits with the hat on, and then they're like, "You are Gryffindor."
So yeah, like this tattoo artist in ancient Japan would read your character and get to know you and decide what you were gonna get.
So
And
if you're
same
that
thing.
person, what would you do? How would you start with somebody that like you don't know? How would you?
Okay,
Where would you direct that?
so I can't tell you how much I hate that situation because like what you're into, like I don't know what, because I've done that with a handful of probably at least 10 people.
I know what I
I don't
want,
I
but
want to I don't know what
yeah.
I want, and then I'm like, well, how about this? No, I don't like that. How about that? I hate like everything I mentioned. Like,
So then, if I come in, you don't know me, and I'm like, I don't have to get it today, but what would you tell me to do to get to the place where I knew what I wanted?
I think I would simply say I don't think you're totally ready yet. I think you got to really wait until you know what you want. I think for some people that never happens. That's why they never get a tattoo. And then for other people, it's more clear and defined. They know what they want, or they have an idea of what they want. And then maybe I can help them with figuring it out.
Yeah, but that's actually great advice. Is like, if you don't know what you want, then you're not ready for it.
Yeah, 100%. The best quote I ever heard was, "They're not for everybody, and they're way too cool for some people." And I just think that's
true.
I just think that's a brilliant encapsulation of tattooing.
Dude, my grandma, God rest her soul, was always like, "Why are you getting tattoos?
Yeah.
They look awful."
Really?
I'm like, yeah, it's like Italian grandmother,
Yeah.
like just so
Well,
anti-tattoo.
your nana.
Yeah. Well, no, she was my nanny. Yeah,
Oh, your
so
nanny,
close.
okay.
And I just remember that. And sometimes I think like, okay, like I look back to my first tattoo, which is just like buckhead, because my spirit animal is a deer. And like, I'm like, okay, well, that was like a different phase of my life.
Yeah. A really special moment I had was actually tattooing my grandmother. She was 81, 82 at the time. It was, yeah, and
That's so
I did a
cool.
sunflower on her, and then she ended up getting a poppy. And I think we're going to do a rose.
She's still alive?
She's still alive. She's 86 now. She's still alive.
Gable's tattooing his grandma at 86.
So come on,
You could do
grandma.
it. Okay. So if I was a tattoo artist and I gave you a tattoo right now for free, didn't matter what it was, and I was the most brilliant artist in the entire world. So you came into my shop and I'm like, "Hi, I'm LJ. I'm a tattoo artist." What would you?
I mean, I flew to London a couple years ago just to get tattooed.
Oh, so you're like a
decided-
tattoo elitist,
I
like a
mean,
little
yeah,
bit of
I
a
mean,
snob.
crazy people like us, that's what we do.
Right.
We go,
Imagine that I'm like,
God,
I'm the guy.
the king.
Yeah.
You're the man.
Yeah.
What would I get? And knowing it's going to be the sickest thing, the
Yeah.
coolest thing, I would get a huge Japanese dragon just covering up
Like on your chest.
everything where there's still room, like on my torso.
That's cool.
Just a huge, just nasty dragon. Just a big,
A nasty dragon.
Japanese inspired dragon.
I love that.
Like with sharp claws and teeth and whiskers and all the elements of a proper Japanese dragon.
Gable, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm just getting
This is
I'm
it.
just getting
This is
fucking
it.
excited.
I want you to tell the lovely viewers out there, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Gable_art tattoo or Babylon tattoo. I'm usually there during the day. Sometimes I'm there at night. But hit me up on Instagram. It's GABLE_art tattoo. Send me a message and we'll talk.
Thank you so much. Guys, I had the best time talking to Gable. He's super fun. He's a really sweet, kind guy. One thing I touched on in the conversation was my latest tattoo. I got the Omega symbol tattooed upon me, and I wanted to expand that in this next segment that I've created called For Me, the T. This is going to be some real talk. We're going to go somewhere, so just buckle up and let's begin. For most of my life, I have been fighting something that I didn't even realize I had been fighting. I was rejecting a very natural part of me, mostly because I thought that it wasn't desirable. And one of the ways that I started to understand this was through my work with the tarot. Because you see, the cards, they're not just symbols, okay? They hold energy in them. And two cards that have always stood out to me as pure divine energy are the Emperor and the Empress. So you see, the Emperor is like the divine masculine with its structure, leadership, and direction. He doesn't just sit in his power, he establishes it. The Emperor makes things happen, okay? He rules with intention, clarity, and command. And the Empress, she's flow, okay? She's expansion. She doesn't build the empire, she becomes it. So when the Emperor commands, the divine feminine magnetizes. She doesn't chase, she attracts. She receives, she nurtures, and she multiplies everything she's given. Now, why am I sharing this all with you? Well, as I started to understand and research the idea of polarity in the tarot, I kind of looked at how we manifested in ourselves in relationships. And then I kind of found that it's a little bit more elevated than masculine and feminine. Now that it's not just like gender terms, it's about alpha and omega energy. Okay, so alpha is directive. It moves first. It creates structure, stability, and form. It is the initiating force that sets things in motion, right? And omega is receptive. It holds space. It takes what alpha creates and it transforms it into something bigger than itself, something complete. It is not passive. It is magnetic. And the truth is, we all hold both alpha and omega energy, but at different times in our lives, we may embody one more than the other. And another truth is that we tend to have one energy that we naturally inhabit more than the other. And here's the thing. This is exactly what I find so many gay men struggle with. So we've been told directly and indirectly that masculinity itself is just more valuable, that being masc is more attractive, more respected, more powerful, that being too soft, too expressive, too fluid basically makes you less desirable. And I can bring this all the way back to elementary school and middle school for me. I was teased mercilessly. My name's LJ, and I remember some of the kids used to call me LG for little girl because I wasn't like the other boys. I wanted to draw mermaids. I was softer, and I wanted to get lost in my fantasy play acting world of the Nutcracker and the Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. And that shame from that age really stayed with me because I felt so rejected just for being myself. And it wasn't just my mannerisms that I was teased for. I was more sensitive. I was intuitive and understanding of emotions on a deeper level. Fast forward to college, and I went to school at the new school. I studied acting. And I remember when my acting teacher said to me, if you want to be taken seriously as an actor and get good roles, you can't come across as gay. I remember that being the moment. That's when I consciously started to reject myself. I tried to drop my voice. I began working out. I watched what I said and make sure it didn't have too much emphasis or animation to it. It really actually escalated after college because when I was in the dating world and understanding masc for masc, masculine for masculine only, right? It's so deeply ingrained in our culture. And I think it's why some gay men spend their entire lives trying to deepen their voice, bulk up, take up this sort of space, because we've been told that that is what gives us value. But the problem is it ends up making you hate and have shame for the more feminine sides of yourself. And so you start to suppress it. And all of a sudden, you don't even know if your personality and energy is just what you naturally are, organic and authentic, or if it's put on. I've spent so many years trying to come across a different way. And in those phases, I never understood, why people in my life sometimes would label me as fake and inauthentic. And I think I finally get it now. I think I finally understand. I thought that's what power looked like. I thought like directing, controlling, being the biggest, being the strongest in the room. But here's what nobody talks about. You see, right order masculinity, it's not about dominance. It is about stability. And right order femininity isn't about submissiveness. It's about receptivity. It's about holding space. It's about intuition. But what we've been taught is to reject one of the energies within us. So we never learn to truly embody the other. It's all a mess. And I've learned that for me, power, true power, exists in allowing. I have proof of this, literally inked on my skin. When I first became an entrepreneur, when I first opened my gym in 2019, I was pushing myself into pure alpha energy. I had to be, or I felt like I did. I was in full command. I create my reality. I'm in charge of everything in my life, right? And those are words that I got, tattooed, marked, and inked with these runes, these symbols of power, direction, and force on me that Gable helped me with. That energy served me then, but now I've entered a different phase of my life, a phase of allowing my receptivity, of trusting that what is meant for me is already moving towards me, of simply being instead of forcing. And I gotta tell you guys, it feels amazing because I'm not trying anymore. And that's why I got my new tattoo, the Omega symbol. You see, Omega energy is often misunderstood. We live in a world that glorifies control, hustle, action, being the hardest worker, going the longest. We think power is in force. But for me, true power is in allowing. It's in knowing who you are so deeply that you don't need to chase. You just naturally attract to you. And see, it all kind of clicked together in my last relationship because for the first time, I felt like the raw materials were there. At least I thought they were at first. Because you see, in the beginning of the relationship, he was really holding that alpha energy, steady, calm, anchor. And when I felt that, I relaxed. I softened. I became even more creative, even more intuitive. I felt like me, like something that had been hiding. But the reality is, he couldn't hold on to it. He was an alpha in sheep's clothing. Because the moment things got hard, he cracked. He needed me to be the anchor. He needed me to stabilize him. And suddenly, I wasn't flowing anymore. I was back in the role of holding everything down, holding everything together, like I had been in most of my previous relationships. And it was out of balance. And that's when I realized that this has been a pattern all along. It wasn't just about him, it was about every dynamic where I was forced into an energy that just didn't feel natural for me. Every time I had to lead when I wanted to just be, every time I had to be the structure when all I wanted was to flow. And that's why I got the Omega tattoo. Not because I need someone to dominate me, not because I am less than, but because I finally understand how my energy is meant to move. Because true Omega energy isn't weak, my dear listener. It's not passive. It isn't something to be dominated. True Omega energy is magnetizing. It holds, it multiplies, it transforms. And the moment that I stopped resisting that, everything in my life changed. So now, here I am, I'm 38, and I am finally reclaiming my identity. I'm not being so aware of how I come across anymore. I'm just being me and being what feels natural. And let me tell you, it is incredibly liberating. So here's what I'm going to say for you out there, especially to my gay listeners. If you feel that there is part of you that is more feminine and has more of that feminine energy. And now, again, I am not talking about dominance and submission. I'm not talking about tops and bottoms. I'm not talking about this like obnoxious binary that is like powerful and not powerful. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is polarity, how one completes the other, okay? The yin and yang, okay? If you feel like you've got some feminine energy in there that you need to make peace with, I suggest you do so because the feminine, divine feminine energy, when it's in right order, is absolutely beautiful. And on the other hand, if you have been like trying to be masculine, and you are just naturally someone who's in command and, people look to for leadership, you're the steadying force in the situation, just be that. Don't feel like you have to put on this like, oh, I'm a tough guy, because that's not masculinity. That's toxic, right? And like we have these conversations all the time, like toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, all this sort of stuff, and everything is so out of order. And I just want you guys to really just embrace what feels natural, what's coming naturally for you. I feel like this is the first time in my life where I am just totally flowing. And I feel really good. I feel amazing. And I feel like I'm in this omega energy and I am vibing with it. So I really wanted to share that with you guys because it's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. And it's something that's just consumed me in a way because I've realized there's just like so much shame, so much stuff that I have been running from my whole life. And it's time now. It's done. We're done now. We're just going to be here. We're going to be present. We're going to be in our divine omega energy and we're going to magnetize what comes to us. Okay. So if my man is out there, okay, if my alpha sexy ass man is out there, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not, but whatevs. You know how to find me. Okay. So, well, one more thing to get to today. Let's shift gears because I'm going to take you behind the scenes now of the Alchemist Blueprint. It's something that has completely transformed the way that I approach personal growth. And honestly, I'm hoping that it does the same for you. As y'all know, I closed my group fitness gym, Roxfire Fitness, late last year, and I decided to trust my intuition and my heart with what I wanted to create. Omega energy. So I have been full steam ahead on something I'm calling the Alchemist Blueprint. And let me tell you, this has been a ride. It was born out of my journey to becoming a life coach, something that I've been gravitating towards since I first started fitness coaching. But really, this process started back in 2022 when I had a spiritual awakening, which, by the way, we're going to deep dive into another episode because we need to talk about it. That's when I started reading tarot cards, okay? And that's also when I really unlocked my psychic intuition. And I realized that this work, helping people shift their beliefs and transform their lives, wasn't just something that I was interested in. And it also wasn't just something that I felt like I could do with fitness. It was something that I had to do on a real deep level. You see, for me, you see what I did there? This has seamlessly led into transformational life coaching. And the Alchemist Blueprint is my perspective. Really, it's my approach and my way into this space, partly based on what I feel is missing from the current self development practices that I'm aware of, and partly what God, partly what spirit, or just this energy has been guiding me to create. Just to be an obnoxious Swiftie, kind of like how Taylor Swift was called to make Torture Poets Department. It wasn't just an album for her. It was like she had to do it. And that's exactly what this chapter of my life has been about. And this was really the first thing that started coming out for me. So what is going on with it? Well, first we have the alchemical shift process. And I had a couple versions of it, but now I've streamlined it into something intuitive and powerful. So I decided to kind of take from this kind of alchemy theme and use the 5 elements of transformation: ether, air, water, and fire, and earth. And I've kind of taken that combined with the magician's journey and the tarot. And if you don't know what that means, that's okay. I'm going to break it down. You see, the magician is a card in the tarot. It's like the first card or the card after the Fool that's about turning vision into reality. And that's really what we're doing here. So I've taken sort of that idea, and now there's like a structure, a 7-day sort of initiation. And each day unlocks a new level of transformation. It's going to help you go from uncertainty to fully embodying your highest self. Because let's talk about the part that actually changes lives. So it's called the alchemical shift process. The problem that I see is that most people get stuck in manifestation because they think they can just think their way into a new reality or just say affirmations, but your brain doesn't really work like that. It actually just needs proof. Otherwise, it's going to default back to old patterns. And that's why this process works, because it requires your subconscious through actual evidence. So it's basically a 3-step process. Step 1 is going to be identifying the shadow belief. This is the outdated belief that's shaping your reality. So for example, I'm not worthy of love. Step 2 is going to be the transmutation. That's where we're going to rewrite the narrative. So what is the opposite, the new empowered belief? So if it's I'm not worthy of love, the transmutation belief would be I am worthy of a deep and fulfilling love. Now, step 3 is the embodiment, and this is where the proof comes in. If your brain doesn't see it, it won't stick. So, for example, I walked away from a relationship that didn't serve me. That is proof that I respect my worth. Therefore, I am worthy of deep love. And it's like, oh, my subconscious is like, oh, so you already have proof of the new belief. So this is where the real change happens. Okay, so it's not just about shifting your mindset, it's about reprogramming where you're focusing your energy and your attention. Because when your mind starts to see all this evidence that you're listing for this thing that you want to be true, it's now going to default to believing that it's true because there's already proof. So I have a little guide, a little sort of teaser that I've put together. The program is launching in about 2 weeks, but if you want to get in on the guide and start this process, the link is in my bio, actually, and I'll also link it below. And you can literally click it, download it, and watch the magic happen. Okay. I think we've been here, there, and everywhere today, don't you? It's been quite an episode of For Me, the podcast. I enjoy this the more that I do it. I feel like it gets more fun. I get more relaxed the more that I do it. And I'm really grateful for you guys for coming along with me on this self-development and this transformational experience I'm having in my life. I'm really grateful that you guys are listening and watching and interacting with me. So feel free to always send me a message. I am very friendly, so I will respond. Thank you for joining me on For Me, a podcast. You can check me out at Inner Alchemy LJ on Instagram and TikTok. So guys, one last thing. If you have a question, I'm going to do a segment on the next episode that's going to be Ask Me Anything. So if this is like love or career or whatever it is that you want to ask me, I will come up with my answer. So click the link. It's also linked below and in my bio. Throw in a question. You can tell me your name. You don't have to. And I will pick some of the best questions and answer them next time. Thank you for joining me. Have a beautiful day. All right, we're done.